Hi guys, and welcome back to another lesson in Algebra 1. Today is all about writing equations that are parallel, or that form parallel lines. And so how you know you're successful today is you're going to need to know how to write an equation of a line that is parallel to a given line and passes through a given point. And then two, I can write an equation of a line that is parallel to the x-axis or y-axis through a given point. I did put three formulas on this page for you. I mean, your slope. Most of your stuff you're going to be using point slope, but sometimes you're going to have to use slope intercept. Let's go ahead and fill out these notes real fast. So it says, how to write the equation of a parallel line. It says parallel lines, remember from our last lesson, they have the same slope. Okay. And so there's a period right there. Um, and then what you've got to do is you're going to identify the slope in the problem. Okay. And what you're going to do is when you get that slope, you're going to plug in the given point and slope into the point slope equation. Okay. And so we'll be using this equation up here quite a bit today. All right, equations that are parallel to the x and y axis. Well, first, let's go ahead and just, acknowledge that this axis, this horizontal one, that is my x-axis. And so if we're going to write an equation that is parallel to the x-axis, we got to think about what kind of slope it can have. So let's go ahead and draw this. Let's just say that I gave you this line here. Okay. This slope, it's a flat line. Its slope is 0. Okay, it's a flat pancake line. And then the equation is going to be y equals, because the only place it crosses is right here. It's crossing on the y-axis, which is kind of weird because you're like, it's parallel to the x-axis, so you think there's going to be an x in it. Well, its equation is y. And so we go up 1, 2, 3. So this one, its particular equation is y equals 3. Okay, it's going to be y equals something. Now I can show you real fast about why the equation is y equals, because when we plug in our slope, let's say if we just use a slope intercept, if we plug in our slope here at 0, look what happens to this. It cancels out. That 0 just makes that x go away. That's why the equation is only y equals something. And the something is going to be where it crosses the y-axis, or my y-intercept. All right, let's go ahead and look at this next one. This next one is parallel to the y-axis. And let's go ahead and acknowledge that my y-axis is this bad boy that's going up and down. It's vertical. And so if I go draw me a line vertically, got this here. Okay. So my vertical line, notice that my slope here is undefined. Okay. It's going up and down. It's a vertical line. So I can just write undefined here. And so if they're parallel to the y-axis, all of them will be undefined, just like if they're parallel to the x-axis, all of their slopes will be 0. And my equation is going to be, look, it doesn't cross anywhere on the y. It's only crossing the x. So you're going to write the equation as x equals something or other, okay? And in this case, I went 3 to the left, so this one is going to be x equals -3. Now, if I go too fast, just go ahead and pause it and get caught up, because of course I'm recording this ahead of time. I'm going to go ahead and clear all this off, and let's go to the bottom part and the examples. All right, so let's read about this problem here. It says write an equation that is parallel to y equals -3, and it goes through this point. This is going to seem a little complicated, but let's draw this out and see what's going on. Okay, because it's a y equals -3, I'm going to go ahead and make me a coordinate grid just here real fast so that we can at least get our bearings of what's happening in this line. And so I've drawn my, my thing here. Now, it's y equals -3. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Whoops. See, sometimes even teachers get backwards, right? Where it's y equals -3, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3. And so it is going this way. Okay. Now, if I want a line that is parallel to that, am going to have to figure out which of this is going to apply. Well, let's graph this point right here. 8, -1. So it's over here going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, -1. This point is all the way down here. The only way to draw a line that is parallel is going to be going this way. Okay. So that's a parallel line. So only one point comes into play here with this. It's this -1. Okay. So my equation for a parallel line is going to be y equals -1. Okay. They both have a slope of 0. All right, let's go ahead and look at this next one. And it asks me to, let's see, write an equation of a line that is parallel to the x-axis and goes through this point. Okay, so how are we going to write that? Let's go ahead and draw our coordinate grid so that we can get our bearings. Okay, and I'm just going to acknowledge that I know what this is, that this here is my y and this is my x. I'm just getting my bearings here. We want something that is parallel to the x-axis. So we want something that is running, in this kind of direction. Now it's going to go through -9, 6. Well, let's plot that point and then we can kind of have a visual about where it should be. Okay. We're going to go over here to -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we're going to go up here to 6. So this is my 0.96. And so the only way for it to be parallel is like that. And so the only point or the only part of the coordinate point that's going to apply here is where it's crossing the y-axis. So my equation is going to be y equals 6. Alrighty, let's look at this next one. It says, and by the way, when you see ones like this, it says like it's parallel to like this guy. You see these kind of like little short things. Draw a picture, like really draw a picture because it's very easy for your brain to get off and do that wrong, even though it's fairly, simple and straightforward. Okay, let's read this. It says write a line or write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So now we're going to have to write it in slope-intercept form that is parallel to this bad boy, and it goes through this. Okay. Well, our first step is that we needed to identify our y-intercept, and our y-intercept is right here. Okay, here's our y-intercept. And so fortunately, they gave us, an equation that was in slope-intercept form, so that makes it a lot easier. So my slope, oops, it would help if I wrote the E there. I'll erase that, fix it back. My slope is -2/5. If it is parallel, remember, it's going to have the same slope, right? So we don't have to do anything to that slope. And it's going to pass through this point. So, the first step was to identify my slope, which is what we did. And then we're going to write our point slope equation. And I write my point slope equation over and over again because I don't know, it's just good for you to make sure that you know your equations and that you feel comfortable with them. And so, y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Okay, I've identified the equation I need and then I wrote it down and now I'm going to plug in my values. And so, we're going to do y minus my y1 is this -1 here. And so if we subtract a -1, remember that's really adding. My m is this -2/5, and we got it straight out of this equation. Okay, so -2/5. And then we get x minus 10. Okay, so we've written it in point slope form, but it asked us to write it in slope intercept. So this is where it's really important that you know and feel very comfortable in your equation types, because you'll be like, okay, I did this, but that's not the form that they wanted it. They wanted it in slope intercept. Okay. So we're going to have to rearrange this. So I can go ahead and write my y, I'm going to clean this up a little bit, plus 1 equals -2/5 x minus 10. All right, so I'm going to distribute. So that gives me -2/5 x. Let me write that kind of more beside it. -2/5 x. And this is going to be a fraction times this whole number. So -10, well, we'll deal with the negative in a second. 10 on top of 1 here. I'll do the scratch work here. -2/5 times 10, and that's -10. It's really -10 over 1, right? So just like how we can, go back to when you learned how to do fractions, you've got -10, a -2 times -10, which is -20 or +20 over 5. That's going to give me 4. Okay. So that mess simplifies to 4. And the faster way that, I typically do it is I'm like, okay, the 5, there's 2 5s that can go in this. And so then I get -2 times -2 gives me +4. All right. And then we got y plus 1. Okay, well, we got to move this y over. So I'm going to subtract my y and subtract my y. This cancels, and I get y equals -2/5 x plus 3. That's in slope intercept form. Alrighty, let's go to the next one. And so the next one, it says, let's go grab my highlighter. It says, write the equation in slope-intercept form that is parallel to this guy, and it goes through here. Now, we cannot readily identify our slope in this standard form equation. We're going to have to manipulate it to get it into the form where we can even figure out what our slope is. So let's go ahead and write this. We've got to find our slope. So I'm going to convert this to slope-intercept. I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. This cancels. We get -2y equals -6x plus 14 divided by -2. And so that gives us y equals -6 divided by -2 is 3x. 14 divided by -2 is -7. So that's my that's just replacing this equation here. Okay, we still have not even really addressed this problem over here. That's just the kind of background work. Now, my slope in this is going to be this number here. That's the slope that we're dealing with, is at 3. So my slope equals 3. Oh, goodness, my drawing tablet is being very strange. Yeah. Okay, my slope equals 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and write it in point slope form. So I'm going to write my point slope equation. Okay, so I've got y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. I plug it in, y minus my y1 is this -5. Okay, minus a negative, that's really adding. My m is this 3 that I got in that equation we rearranged. X minus 4. Okay, that's my point slope form, but now we've got to rearrange this into slope intercept. Okay, so let's do a little bit of math. Let me go ahead and combine this. We got y plus 5. So that kind of took away some of that confusion in there. I'm going to distribute this. We got 3 times x, which is 3x. 3 times -4 is -12. We're really close to almost being done. We're going to subtract 5 and subtract 5. And we get y equals 3x minus 17. That's in slope-intercept form. That's the way the question asked for us to do it. So we did it. Yay for us. Now, if I'm going too fast, go ahead and pause it. I'm going to scroll down to the next examples. All right, so now we're given some equations. What are we going to do with this? Okay, so it says, let's see, let me get my highlighter. It says, write the equation of the line that is parallel to the line shown on the grid, and it goes through this. And then we're going to graph that line. Okay, so we got several things that we've got to do. When you do these kinds of problems, make sure that you are doing all the components that it asks for. It's really easy to skip over something. Okay, the first thing I want you to notice is that this is slanted up here going left. So we know that my slope is going to be negative. Okay, like this one over here is slanted to the right. I know my slope is going to be positive. I'm just writing the negative there so we don't forget. Now, the slope here looks pretty easy peasy. It's up 1 over 1. So I know that my slope is -1. All right. So now we can write our point slope equation. I'm doing y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. My y minus 1. My m is this -1 here. We got it off the graph. X minus x1, which is 5. Okay. Now, for me to graph this, okay, so they wanted us to write the line that's parallel. Well, this line is parallel here. I mean, we've gotten that far. But they want us to go ahead and graph it. And it's not as easy to graph off of this as it is, to just get it in slope intercept. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute this out. So -1 times x is -x, +5. We got y minus 1. We can do +1, +1. So we got y equals -x plus 6. This is the easiest form to graph from. Okay. Now, honestly, there's another way that you could have done this, and I will show you in just a second. Okay, I'm going to clean this up just a little bit so we can have a clean spot. Okay, so we're going to go to +6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's up here in that. I should have cleaned up some more probably. Let's see. Yeah, let's clean that up. So +6 is going to be right about here. And we're going to do, a slope of -1, right? So it's going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. So we get a line like this. I can't freehand lines very well, but that's how you would get it. Now, there's another way. Let me show you the other way. Now, we had to figure out an equation because it told us to. But technically, you could have actually left it up here like point slope because it didn't say what equation we had to have. Um, and you could have just graphed based on the point that they gave you and the slope that we figured out. So if you went off the point that they gave us, they told us 5, 1. Well, that's over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1. So that's right here. And then we just do the same exact slope. Mirror, 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 mirror. And look, it hits that 6 that we calculated. And so that's another way that you could graph that. And that's one of the advantages of being fluent, kind of understanding what each component's telling us, because it can sometimes let you do things quicker and easier. All right, let's go ahead and look at this one. It says, write the equation of the line that's parallel to the line shown on the grid and goes through this point. All right, so the first thing we got to do is we've got to figure out our slope over here. And so our slope, I see it's crossing here. And I see it's crossing here. So it looks like it's going up 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going over 4. So my slope is 1/4. Okay, so my point slope equation, I'm going to do y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Y minus my y1 is this 2. My m is this 1/4 that we got from the graph. And we got x minus -3. Okay, and when we subtract a negative, we are adding. Okay, so we can write this over again and start combining things. 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times 3 is going to give you 3/4. And then we can add 2 to both sides. Okay, so we got y equals 1/4 x. And then we're going to end up having 2 3/4 or 2.75, which is a little awkward. And so we can, oops, I forgot to write my plus there. So we're going to go up to 1, 2.75, and we're essentially going to follow the same path. We're going to go up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. We can draw our line. Like this, like so. Okay, here's my equation. Let me rewrite that a little bit. Okay, we got 1/4 x plus 2 3/4. Okay, now we could have used this point here and then plotted. So let's say that we went over here to -1, 2, 3, and then up to 2. Look, that went right through that line that I drew. So I could have based it off of that. And that would be easier than dealing with this messy y-intercept, right? Like, who wants to deal with that messiness? So being fluent in knowing that you can also use this point and build your slope off of that helps. Okay. Until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day. Bye.